You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGackie, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
What is up, good people, and welcome to the podcast. This week is a week of things just clicking into place after several very, very, very weird years. This is my third in-person interview since the weirdness of lockdown, and it's the first one that hasn't been with my good friend, Mr. Dewey Halpus of the Pure Pleasure podcast. Today, I'm talking to Chef Ricky Bella. He runs the kitchen at a place called Palomar here in Portland, where I had one of the best meals of my entire life. Ricky is also a massive music enthusiast. He used to play in metal bands back in the day. He is a guitar geek. He does luthier work on the side. He is all in on the guitar stuff as well. And as you know, this is borderline a food podcast anyway. So this was a match made in heaven. Ricky and I had a great time just kind of dissecting the nuances of each other's industry and realizing that they're almost identical. Very different in the actual product, of course, but the guitar industry and the restaurant industry have way more in common than I ever would have guessed, and we dive into that very deep on this episode. But I have two really quick things to get out of the way before I dive into this episode. First being, if you're a listener of this podcast, which if you're not hearing this, so I don't know who else I would be talking to right now. If you use Tone Mob, all one word, at checkout, you will get 10% off. It doesn't matter if you've ordered from us before, but this code is only good one time. So this is not an ongoing code. But if you're looking to stock up, Tone Mob at checkout will get you 10% off of anything that you're ordering on the website. So go ahead and do that at your leisure. And speaking of Stringjoy, I am going to be at the Stringjoy booth for the entirety of NAMM, which is this week. And if you're listening to this on the day it dropped, I'm probably packing my bag furiously right now because I am flying out on Wednesday and I will be there for the whole show. And I will pretty much be at the Stringjoy booth the whole time. We are located right at the entrance to Hall D, so you can come see us on your way into the show or on your way out of the show. We will be there hanging out, talking to people, and saying hello. So please don't be a stranger. If you see me there looking all weird and confused, go ahead and say hi. I'd love to talk to you, love to meet you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get into this podcast with Chef Ricky Bella. Here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, a show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland. With me today, I have Chef Ricky Bella. What's going on, dude?
What up, bro?
Dude, we're just going to pretend like we haven't been out here nerding out for hours and hours already.
It was supposed to be 10 minutes and 2 hours go by, yeah.
Dude, I've been so excited to have you on the show. Obviously, this is a food podcast that masquerades as a guitar show.
Yeah, more often than not.
Mm-hmm. You know the whole drill. And you're the second chef that's come on the show.
It's an honor.
And the first Portland chef, which actually seems kind of insane because I've started to gather that a lot of the people that own restaurants or work in the restaurant industry in this town play guitar or are musically inclined in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, yeah, I don't know about if it's like specific to Portland, but the Venn diagram is basically a circle of like failed musicians that are cooking in kitchens or like musicians who are like secretly wanting to be chefs or were line cooks in the past.
Right.
I mean, it's a circle.
Yeah. So when did you get started? Like, obviously you went one way, but when did you get started playing? And do you think that had like any influence on how you ended up cooking?
No, it actually, if anything, it like delayed me taking cooking seriously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was I was in a band. I had my metal band, and like we were gonna be rock stars. You know what I mean? And I was doing dishes to pay rent and buy cigarettes,
Mhm.
you know, like not trying to be a cook at all.
Right.
And I did dishes for like 2 years, kind of like learning how to cook, but in my head it was like, what do you mean? Like
I'm gonna be a musician.
I'm in a metal band, bro. Like cooking's cool or whatever, but I guess I'll learn it while I'm here.
Mhm.
Like if you're gonna be there doing dishes, you might as well learn how to cut some onions anyways.
Sure.
You know? And I like, yeah, there was like a specific moment where my chef sat me down and was like, look, man, I know you got your band and all that stuff, but like you have a good opportunity to learn how to cook here. You're in a kitchen surrounded by good cooks. Like people here take the time to show you stuff. If you want to take this seriously, like you can be out of the dish pit, you can be a cook
Mhm.
in a couple months. You could be a chef one day. And like I remember being like, well, that's cool. I mean, I'm gonna be the next Cliff Burton, but maybe I'll look into this cooking thing.
Right.
You know? And then yeah, obviously it went that way.
Mhm.
Chef a couple years later.
Was there a moment where it kind of switched in your brain? You're like, no, I'm a chef now.
Yeah, I guess there was. I think when I started finding myself in like environments that were more serious,
Mhm.
you know, like when you're cooking, like my first job was at a coffee shop washing dishes.
Mhm.
But the coffee shop did like fine dining pop-ups, if you will.
Okay.
So this is before pop-ups were a thing. Like
Sure.
that's a thing now.
Mhm.
You know, oh, everyone has a pop-up. This was before that term. We called it a supper club. And it was like,
It sounds cooler somehow.
it was so much cooler. It was so much sexier.
Yeah.
Supper club
Supper
is
club.
sexier than pop-up.
Way cooler. Yeah.
But we did like once a month. We would sell tickets ahead of time and we'd do these big like 6-course, like fancy fine dining things, you know.
Mhm.
But for the most part, it was a coffee shop.
Yeah.
But then moved on from there. I actually followed the chef who was doing those dinners to open his first restaurant as a dishwasher. Learn how to cook there. And then it was like a little bit more serious, you know, like everyone had black button-up shirts and
Mhm.
like everyone like kind of carried themselves more professionally than the coffee shop. And you're
Mhm.
like, oh, I think like I can get into this. Like I see why, you know, I see why these guys like
The appeal, right?
yeah, you
Mhm.
know, and it's like there's the guy with the dirty apron. There's the guy who's like apron's still clean at the end of service. Like
I don't even know how that's possible.
I'm into that. Like
Yeah.
I like that, you
Mhm.
know? Like I see why it's like I see why you're tight if you end service with a clean apron, you know?
Right.
And then so like that, it just like that kind of mentality was like, okay, like I could dig this, you
Mhm.
know. And then you end up, you know, in like a real fine dining restaurant where everyone's wearing white and you have like, you know, it's almost like a badge of honor. Like that you make your cooks wear white shirts and white aprons because if they spill something, they look like dumbasses.
Oh,
you know, like you can
man.
see it. So like just being in that environment was like, okay, like I could like you start taking it more seriously.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, wow.
And then you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna be the next Metallica, so I might as well learn how to cook.
But I mean, it's kind of a weird world, right? Where I don't know, we're close to the same age, and I know it did exist, but I don't think it existed to the same extent where there are like rock star chefs, like where people, like my closest experience with any of that is like going to Nashville and I'm like, oh, I gotta hit up Sean Brock's spots,
Yeah, for sure.
and I know who he is,
Yep.
and I don't think that existed so much in the like 90s and early 2000s.
It didn't, man. It like when I first got into the industry and started taking it seriously, it was a whole different ball game. Like what a successful chef looked like
Mhm.
back then was different than what it looked like now, you know, and even like a tier above that, like what a celebrity chef looked like back then was totally different than now. Like when I started cooking, you had like Emeril Lagasse,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the handful of the OGs from the American Iron Chef, you
Mhm.
know, like, you know, Bobby Flay was one of them and Batali and all those guys. But like this was like this small group.
There was like 5.
Like 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like you knew them because they were on Food Network. And that
Mhm.
was the public's like only insight into our world was that one channel, you know, channel 59 or whatever it was, and these like 5, 6 chefs. And then like with the social media revolution, and all of a sudden it wasn't just Iron Chef America, it was Iron Chef, and it was Top Chef, and it was Chopped, and it was like, and just the explosion of this like celebrity chef culture, and now I think it's kind of settled down. Like that whole scene like jumped the shark and just became ridiculous for a while, where you had a lot of guys like me, like real life Joe Blow chefs, who were just like, this sucks, I hate celebrity chef culture. And now I think it's kind of came back around to where it's like, okay, this can be a cool thing. And like, it is cool. Like you are kind of a rock star. Like it's very far removed from like a 9-to-5 office job. Like it's not a normal job.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are like, they hear about my normal life and they're like, what do you mean 12-hour shift?
Right.
Like that's insane.
Like, what are you talking about?
You're on your feet nonstop for 12 hours and you don't, there's no breaks, there's no lunches, there's no nothing. And you're like, yeah, I've been doing it for 15 years.
It's what it is, right?
Yeah, it is what it is. Exactly.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because, and I feel like the celebrity chef culture is one thing, and it obviously still exists in lots of, it's been broken up a lot more, I feel like, amongst a lot of people. But what's interesting is how, and maybe it's more specific to people like me who like really love going out and like specifically like following certain people like you. I was like, the first time I became aware of you, and I know you had prior experience to this, but was at JoJo. I'd been to JoJo, and I was like, this place is the bomb. I remember somebody coming to town. My friend Rick Matthews, actually, runs Matthews Effects. He's coming to town. He's like, we're going to where was it? We're stopping at Chick-fil-A. I was like, don't come to Portland and get Chick-fil-a.
Yeah, what
are you talking about?
You want to stop by Walmart on the way?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you're real. I mean, I know you're from Tri-City, so this is like a little bit out there for you. But like, no, don't. I was like, go to JoJo. Just go to JoJo. He's like, really? I was like, yes, I promise you, go to JoJo.
Is he one of those guys who's like, you mean the food truck? Like, it's not even a real restaurant.
He's more into it than that. But I was like, just trust me. You've been Chick-fil-A a million times. Go to JoJo. Okay. Because I think it was like he didn't have a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And I'm like, go to JoJo. And he did. And he texted me. He was like, I'm so glad you sent me there.
Yeah.
So when I found out you went to Palomar, I was like, I'm following you.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to go to that restaurant, was because I was like, oh, Ricky's there, I'm going there.
Right.
And that now happens at a more local level, but it's all, I mean, not just local. There's people who know who you are not in Portland too.
I mean, yeah, it's weird because that, like, the connection between the chef and the food used to not, like, that wasn't a thing.
It was more like the restaurant.
It was the restaurant. Yeah. And now it's like, I mean, Portland's a small, especially the industry is a small community. Like the restaurant industry is tiny. I've been cooking in Portland for 15 years. There's not a lot of cooks in town that I don't know one way or another,
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's almost like chefs moving to, or sous chefs, or like really good line cooks, like moving to different restaurants. Like, it's almost like following like NBA trade drama. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, like Ricky left Bullard and went to JoJo, and now he's at Palomar. And then like,
yeah, and I found out about Bullard after. I was like, oh, he was at Bullard. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you like start like connecting the dots, and even like as chefs, like you're always kind of hiring. Like you always need a good cook. Like a really good cook is worth their weight in gold. So like, even amongst chefs, you're like, oh man, my boy worked with me before. He's a killer. He's over at, this restaurant now. And then like, oh, you should hit him up. You should try to snag him from there. It's like, oh yeah, he's at whatever. He's at Tusk, but like, oh, you should hit him up and like try and steal him. He's like a good at, he's a real good cook. Like, yeah. There's a bit of the like cult of personality thing going on there,
Yeah. It's such a hearing about different communities. And I was just talking about this recently with our guy at Stringjoy, Chris. He does all our like dealer sales and stuff. I said, I'm noticing a trend amongst, and it should be totally obvious, but for some reason to me, it would like just clicked and didn't click until yesterday, that all of these industries have these communities. And then there's even division amongst the industries, right? So like all the pedal builders know each other pretty much.
Right.
They at least know of each other.
Right.
For the most part.
Well,
Anybody
they call it like whatever degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, exactly. And then like most of us guitar media people have some sort of connection to each other too. Like we'll go to Gear Fest or something and like, oh hey, and we're all hanging out. Like there's some level of connection, there. But then I didn't realize until just recently visiting some of the local dealers that like the dealers have that too. Like the dealers all talk to each other on like group texts, and they
separately
go see
from your guys' group texts.
Well, yes. So there's like a line between the brands and the media people, and the retailers, and it's like same industry, same goal, really. Like get people the gear they want. That's the goal, and there's a whole ecosystem designed around supporting that. But like we talk to the dealers, obviously, but not in the same way. They're like, hey, so what's up with the string joy? They sketchy or like what? Are they good to work with? Because we do the same thing.
Maybe a little clicky.
It's clicky, but it's like also kind of it's good because it can save you from headaches on the brand side and on the retail side because they, we have a pretty good relationship with the folks at EQD, and so it's pretty regular for like, hey, this bigger account hit us up, but we've heard
right
and it's like, oh yeah, you just want to make sure you outline the contract like this because they'll try to do this X, Y, and Z. Like, thanks Julie, I appreciate that.
Well, and there's a reason those ecosystems exist. Like at the end of the day, you're trying to help out your homie. If a chef hits me up and is like, hey, so and so just applied, they worked for you a long time, like if that's like if that person's a good cook, you're like, nothing would make me happier than that awesome cook working with that awesome chef. And you put them together and it's a great thing, And that's like, if everyone was more like insular about it, like that type of thing wouldn't happen. I'm sure it's the same way with your industry. Like you like hooking cool people up together.
Yeah. Because it's mutually beneficial. And that's been, I've said this a lot on the podcast lately, so apologies everybody, but this show's been this really unexpected, but yet so obvious now that I think about it, networking tool. Because I suddenly have an excuse to talk to people for an hour, direct like this, one-on-one, usually through a screen, but still like we're paying attention to each other. We want to make sure this is an engaging conversation. So I get to do this with people otherwise I have no business talking to. I don't like even yourself. Like why else would we like what else would I have done? Like, hey, I'm gonna come back in your kitchen and show me how to fry chicken.
Yeah, like, hang out for an hour while you're frying chicken.
Like, no, that's not how it works. But it's like, hey, come on the show and I want to talk about you. It's become this incredible tool for getting to know people I otherwise wouldn't.
You almost kind of forget that what you're doing is sitting down and talking and learning about somebody, like in a weird way.
It is. It's weird. And then, some people end up, becoming really good friends. And some people, it's like, we do the show and it's like, we're friendly. But then it's like, some people become friends. Some people become lifelong business partners, as what happened with Scott.
Right.
That totally happened because of the podcast.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so all that to say is I've tried to impress upon people who have asked me about trying to get into the music gear business or any other businesses. Like, honestly, everything I've gotten to do is because of the people I know. Yeah. And it's not like a gatekeeper thing where they're like keeping me out. It's like you said, like, oh, is this cook good? Yes. Oh, I'd love for him to work for you.
Right.
Like, because he was good for me. And it's a synergistic thing that happens. It's just always good to have more friends.
And it's weird because you don't want to take away from the craft, like saying like, oh, it's all about who you know. Like you can almost imply like who you know is more important than what you're doing, but it's not. You have to have both.
It's assuming that you're already good at that part.
Right. That's the baseline. It's like, this, like what this person produces is stellar.
Mm-hmm.
But if that person doesn't like know anybody and doesn't grow their network, like you can be good all day long and not gain traction.
It's very much like the music industry in general. Like there are actually probably millions, I was going to say thousands, but millions of people who are really talented, very good at guitar. Most of the people listening to this podcast are better at guitar than I am.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's wild. You can go on TikTok and you can see somebody who's like one of the greatest guitarists you've ever seen in your life, like in their bedroom doing wiggly wigglies, and it's like, man, I could never do that in a million years. And my favorite guitarist in my favorite band can't do what that 20-year-old kid is doing on TikTok, It's wild. Like talent it ain't free, but it also like doesn't promise you the world unless you like can put it all together.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how it goes in cooking too, man. There's some of the best mechanical cooks, like just stone cold, like killers, like
it's like super accurate,
just
like
producers,
Yeah.
have gotten the promotion to like leadership, like made sous chef and like couldn't do it. Like
Interesting.
couldn't transfer because it's so much more. I mean, like being a chef is you have a dozen different hats that you wear every day. You like first, like we were saying, like baseline, you have to be a great cook.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the best cook in the kitchen, but a really good chef is the best cook in the kitchen.
Of course.
Could step on anyone's station and work it better than them. Could grab anybody's prep list and do it faster than them. But like that's just one small corner of the job. You have to be a plumber. Like if your sink starts leaking, you have to go grab a toolbox and fix it. You have to be like a leader and a mentor to people. You have to be a teacher. You have to know how to motivate people. You have to be a therapist. Like, like it's all of this stuff that makes a good chef a good chef. And like sometimes somebody is missing some of those parts.
Yeah.
And, maybe they'll eventually learn it, but a lot of the times you'll get that cook who's the best cook in the kitchen and they get promoted to sous chef and they get their name on their jacket and they get like leadership responsibilities and they crash and burn.
Wow.
It happens more often than not.
Wow.
Because what being a chef takes so much more than just cooking, I mean, my chef, my like mentor, the guy I worked for like 6 or 7 years. I remember him telling us one time we had a bad service. It was, I almost shouldn't say we because I was the dishwasher and I did pretty good that night. I was just back there doing my dishwasher thing.
There was a bad service.
There was a bad service.
Yeah.
This was years. I was a dishwasher. This was like 15 years ago. And the line, they kind of had a bad service and it was like a busy Friday night and they didn't go.
It's just like things getting screwed up or.
Yeah. Like sometimes like, a really good kitchen will never crash and burn. But even a really good kitchen will have nights where you end service, you sell the last plate of food, and you're like, man, that was so much harder than it needed to be. We just made the last 5 hours of our life way more difficult than it should have been.
Okay.
Like a great kitchen, you're never going to put out bad food. You're not going to sell an overcooked steak. You're not going to forget to salt something out of the fryer. Like you always do those things. But sometimes if you're not set up right, if you're not focused, if you didn't set yourself up, that 5 hours can just suck.
Oh, man.
And
oh, man.
It was one of those nights. And, my chef lined me up with all the cooks too, because he's
like, hey, you're not getting away with
it. He's like,
that.
like we're a team. And he lined us all up and he was like barking at us. And one of the things that he said that I'll never forget, he said, cooking's the easiest part of this job. It's like you guys, you have blinders on like a horse and you haven't even taken the blinders off yet to see what the rest of this job being a chef means. You're just looking through this peephole and you guys can't even do that.
Wow.
This is the easiest part of my job every day is showing up and cooking the food. And I remember being like, it's probably like 20, like a 19, 20-year-old dishwasher and being like, how is that the easy part?
Right.
This is so hard. This is like I come in every day and I give every bit of my like mental and emotional energy into this. And it's like the hardest thing I've ever done. And my chef is like, dude, this is the easy part. And he was right, like,
wow.
Once you become a good cook, then you realize what the rest of the job means. Then you're like, oh, what is inventory? Like, what do you mean I have to count stuff?
See, that's what we were talking about before we were recording. Like when you first got here, it's like, what? Wait, hold on. Like profit and loss statements. I thought I was just here to insert whatever, build amps, or like,
exactly. Cook a good steak, or make a pedal that's shaped like a slice of pizza.
That's right. Yeah, I thought that's what I was here to do.
That's the fun stuff.
I mean, similarly, like this is the fun part for me, doing the show. I love doing the show. What's not so fun is like trying to get everything scheduled, trying to line up with like the sponsors, trying to make sure everything's happy. Like, and then like just all the paperwork. And I'm not even going to go into like all of that stuff because it makes me sound like I'm complaining. I'm not. It's just not the part of the job that's fun.
No, it's not complaining. It's totally fair. And like, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. That sounds horrendous to me. I couldn't do it. If I had to do that for an hour, I would go crazy and run off into the woods somewhere.
Well, similarly, when we came and ate at Palomar, what was it, like 3-4 weeks ago, whatever it was. We'll get into that in a second. There was some amazing stuff. Anyway.
Hell yeah.
But you said like, hey, poke your head in and say bye before you leave. And I did. And I got out there and got in the car and I told my wife, I was like, there is no chance on the face of this planet that I could do what he's doing right now. I just looked back there and I was like seeing you like, whoa, look at that. I was like, these people are crazy.
Yeah.
There's no way I could. I'm actually not a terrible cook, like home cook.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty good on the grill. I have certain things that I'm very good at.
You got the Traeger that the fuzz pedal went into.
That's right. Yeah. I'm very good at barbecuing fuzz pedals. but I can only do one thing.
Yeah.
I can only do one thing at a time even. So if I'm making the meat, she's in there making the sides.
Right.
And I'm only making meat for like maybe up to 10 people.
2.5 people sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Easy to make a perfect steak when you're only doing it for 2 people.
Yep.
So simple. But getting beyond that, like I said, I looked back there. I was like, there's no way I could do that job.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Merit Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. It takes a special mindset.
It does. It takes a special brain to do it. And I think that's the funny thing about the industry. And I think that informs so much of what the industry is that it does take a certain kind of person to do it. Like your average person doesn't have even like the mentality to want to do it, you know? You got to be kind of sick in the head to be
Also, I don't want to.
yeah. I want to walk into a kitchen and I want to work nonstop for 10 hours without a break. I'm going to cook 100 steaks. I'm going to have an hour and a half to set up my station, which is realistically 2 hours worth of work, but I'm going to get it done anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And then after all of that is done, I'm going to get a soapy bucket and I'm going to get covered in grease, scrubbing and cleaning this entire kitchen and sweeping and mopping and taking out giant bags of compost. And not, 1 out of every 10 times that bag's going to rip. Like it takes a specific type of person to want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why the restaurant industry is such an interesting thing from the outside looking in, is because it's filled with all these weirdos, like
the music industry.
Exactly like the
Mm-hmm.
music industry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember one time this same restaurant where I got yelled at from that chef. I remember one of my sous chefs called me a pirate. And it's because I had met somebody for the first time. It was like a new hire or whatever. And they were asking me about myself. And they're like, "Oh, did you go to culinary school?" And I was like, "No, I just learned doing dishes." And then like we started talking. I was like, "Oh yeah, I also dropped out of high school. Oh yeah, I also don't have a GED. Oh yeah, I also live in a house with 10 other people and there's a half pipe in my living room. and it veers off into the kitchen where there's a quarter pipe next to the refrigerator,
Yes.
And I remember like I was talking to this new cook about it, and my sous chef at the time, he was like, yeah, Ricky's a pirate."
Mm-hmm.
And like it's kind of the same. Like those are the type of people that end up in kitchens. Those are the type of people that end up in bands.
Mm-hmm.
Like to go on tour, you have to be a broken individual to want to do that.
I have said this so many times. Part of the reason, like I obviously love music. It's like the thing that gets me more excited than anything. But I knew from a very young age that like touring, no. Being in a recording studio? Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's my thing.
Right.
I could do that all day.
It's like the Drake meme where he's like, no, touring. Like, studio stuff.
Oh man, I could be in the studio. I'm not even that interested in playing live. I love watching live bands, but for myself, like
performing on stage.
Yeah, I don't want to be up there.
Yeah.
Nah, not really. Maybe someday, but like I've done it here and there a little bit, and it's not my thing. I just want to be in the studio making weird sounds. That's all.
I have had friends who are touring musicians, and I'm hearing them like get off a tour and talk about it. I'm like, that sounds like hell on earth.
Mm-hmm. They love it.
They love it.
I don't know if you heard the episode I just did with Henry from Starcrawler.
I haven't. No.
It's interesting because it's like two very different people having a conversation. And not our interests are very similar, but I'm like, I hate road trips. I never want to be on tour. He's like, oh, I'll drive all night.
Yeah.
All night.
Oh man.
He's like, I love it. And so it's like, wow, two people with very similar interests in general.
In the same field, kinda.
Kinda. Outside looking in, like, oh yeah, everyone should be kind of the same. And we are, but the interests that drive you to go one way or another is so different. Those same people don't want to be sitting there twiddling knobs and adjusting compression, and like they don't want to be doing that. They just want to be rocking out and writing songs.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that same. Even with guitarists, like you zoom in even closer, you have guitarists who's like, all I want to do is sit and tinker with my pedal board, or like me, like I do like guitar repairs on the side for friends and stuff. Like I love when a friend will be like, yeah, like I need you to. My intonation's all messed up on my guitar. I'm like, hell yeah, I get to spend an hour and a half in my garage with like a podcast on, and like what I'm doing is like chill as hell to me, but to that guy is like nothing sounds worse than like sitting and getting the action and intonation and truss rod right on this guitar. Mm-hmm. No way. Here's $100. You do it. Like
that's one of those things too. Like I can even relate to that to some degree. It's a kind of mood based for me. Like I know how to set up my electric guitars. I'm very comfortable doing it. I rarely do it though.
You gotta hit the mood.
I gotta be in the mood. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I want to do this tonight. I think the last time setup I did, and it's not actually setup is a loose term that I'm going to use because I just made it not rattle.
Right. You took it out of the red.
Yeah. I was on that bass, and I really only did it because I really needed to play it for a video the next day. And I was like home all by myself, and I was like, I can just do this while watching Predator movies.
Yeah, totally.
And so but like I don't really like doing it. And even though it's one of those weird things. I used to be a mechanic, so I'm pretty handy with a lot of this stuff. But I will take my guitars to other people to have them do things I know how to do, just because I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do it.
I mean, listen, man, I'll go through a drive-through and get Taco Bell.
Right.
Sometimes I don't want to cook.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, that's got to be kind of interesting because you spend so much of your life cooking at a very high level. What's it like at home? You're just like, last thing I want to see is a frying pan right now. Like, is it like that? Or you're like, no, I can do this better than anyone I know.
It depends. It's kind of like what you were just saying. Like sometimes the mood hits me and like, I love cooking at home.
Mm-hmm.
I made,
it's gonna be way less stressful.
Dude, it's way less stressful. I have some guitar YouTube channel on in the background, like I don't have to manage anybody, like, because that's the thing of being a chef. Like most of what you're doing is managing people. And, so there's the term clipboard chefs, like chefs that don't even cook anymore, like they
get it.
Rarely have a knife in their hand. Like you're just doing the stuff, the managerial stuff. So sometimes it's nice to like, yeah, I'm going to go home and I'm going to make like chile verde enchiladas.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds dope.
Right. Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, yeah, no,
I can totally see that. Like, Scott's not making most of the string joy strings. He does get in there sometimes.
Right.
But that's not his primary job anymore. His job is like steering the pirate ship. Like,
yep. And the thing about steering the pirate ship is like, if Scott really loves making the strings, sometimes you have to keep yourself from it because you'll lose track of all the important stuff. Right,
because you'll just be like, oh, I'm going to make the most strings this afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, but what about the 37 emails?
You didn't respond to a single email today. Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I know what he likes about it, and I don't, if he listens to this, he'll be like, that's not what
liar.
I like. Dude, idiot. That's not what I mean when I say that. But like what he likes about it is like getting the processes dialed. Like even like whether that's the process for putting together like the whole system as it looks from a bird's eye view, or down to like getting these winders to be as efficient as possible.
Yep.
While hitting all the quality specs that we're looking for. It's the processes that he likes.
He is a man of my heart. Like that is, at the end of the day, if you boil down to what I enjoy most as a chef, is like streamlining things and making things as efficient as humanly possible. Because, like cooking, like I tell my dishwashers this a lot, is like, if you get good at washing dishes, if you're a really good dishwasher, you already know how to be a really good cook. We're just going to replace plates and pots and sponge and soap with pots and food and plates and cutting board.
Okay.
Like it's the same skill set. It's the same mentality. Like the big thing, like the kind of like main thing that everybody learns at first is like your assembly line mode of doing things. Like everything in the kitchen, like to the absurd degree, somebody like me who's been doing it for 15 years and it's been like in your brain kind of kicking around for 15 years, like you will assembly line the tiniest of little things. And when you see a cook who doesn't do that as a chef, it will like drive you mad.
Really?
Like if you have to, this would never happen in like a real kitchen because this is so absurd, but to make my point, if you had to peel and dice 10 carrots,
okay,
and that cook grabs their peeler, grabs their carrot, peels one carrot, sets the peeler down, grabs the knife, puts the knife on the cutting board, dices that one carrot,
I would
puts that in the container, and then repeats it 10 times, versus the cook who'd go through and peel them all and then go through and dice them all and eat like that mentality. It seems super simple. Like you're like, yeah, I wouldn't even do it either. But you'd be surprised at the extent at which you can take that mentality and how much better of a cook it will make you. Because the initial one is like, yeah, that makes sense. You peel all your carrots before you cut them. But then the next thing is like, okay, well, what are these carrots going in?
Right.
You're making stock, right? Okay, cool. So you went and just grabbed the carrots and came back here and diced them, and now you're going to go back again and grab the celery, and then you're going to go over to dry storage and grab the onions, and then you're going to go get the pot, and then so like you expand that mentality of like assembly lining. Like, nope, here's a sheet tray. Go grab your onions, your carrots, your celery, your garlic, your bay leaf, your pot, your water, the container it's going to go in, the strainer you're going to use it in.
Bring it all here.
Come back with one thing, and then you don't leave your station until that thing is done. You know? So like that type of efficiency, even down to like a molecular level, like that's my jam.
So that's one thing that we, you know, because we do a lot of custom sets and like oddball gauges compared to most companies, we get a lot of requests in for like, can you make something crazy? Oftentimes, this I've said this before on the show, and a lot of people are surprised by it, but because of that, we get people who are talented luthiers that will come in and be like, I don't even know what the best example would be, like ukulele / violin / electric guitar / you know, some crazy thing. And they're like, I spent all this time making this beautiful instrument, and I realized I couldn't find strings for it.
They don't make strings for this thing.
Right. Can you make them for me? And it's like, no, we can't, because in order to do that, we have to completely shut down an assembly line.
Right.
And as you just described, like it's the setup and teardown.
Yep.
That's where you die. Like,
absolutely.
I don't mean actually die, but that's where you.
Well, that's where your labor goes. If you're paying somebody to make something, you know.
And the response has been, some people are like, well, why not? You make all this other stuff. And like, we're set up to do it.
Right.
And if you want this set will be $10,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they were like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Like, no, it does, because in order for us to make this make financial sense for us, that's what it's going to take.
Right.
Because we're going to have to shut down not only all the things we would be doing that day normally, and having those dealers have to wait and having those customers have to wait, all on you to do this one crazy thing. Like, then we got to reset up everything, get all the inventory in that we probably don't have to make this crazy thing.
Right.
And recalibrate everything, and also figure out how to do it. So actually, maybe it's 15.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the inventory I'm bringing in for it, if I don't use all of that inventory to make your strings, then it's sitting around and I don't have a use for it, and I'm going to stare at that box for the next 6 months, you know?
And then I'm going to have to pay tax on that inventory that I have.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
I mean, it's the same thing with restaurants. Like, a lot of times you'll have somebody come to you and be like, hey, we want to like buy out your space and use it for like, you know, whatever, a wedding or a reception or something.
Yeah.
Like, how much would it cost to buy out the space? And we're like, what do you want to do? And they're like, a Friday. And you're like, cool, that will be $12,000. You know, like if it has, like you said, make financial sense, you know?
Yeah.
And to the people that are in control of saving at every last little penny that you possibly can, that's a no duh thing. But for somebody else, like, yeah, what do you mean? Just make me a couple weird strings.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you don't have that perspective, I guess.
Right. Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, I'm not saying that like I woke up and understood all this either. Like, I didn't get that.
Right.
I would hear things like that and be like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
They're like, well, come on.
Show me the math.
Yeah,
like, you don't want to see the math.
Like, you don't get it, man. Like, you don't get it. And it's just not something that most people have exposure to. And then I try to remember that when I'm in situations where I'm frustrated as a customer.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes I have a right to be frustrated as a customer. Everyone does. But sometimes I just don't understand what's really going on.
Absolutely. And that's something that the restaurant industry, for some weird reason, I guess because the restaurant industry exists within a bigger industry of like the quote unquote hospitality industry. But like restaurant people have to deal with that so much more than your average person.
It's
like
crazy.
Servers, shout out to all my servers. You guys, dude, I could never do it. Like some of the horror stories I hear of people like just being like, what do you mean? Why can't you do this thing? Like, sweetie, that's not how restaurants work.
Right.
You know,
you're not
like,
asking for no tomatoes here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
You know, or like, you know, God forbid, like somebody who like will like snap at a server. Like that happens. That happened at Palomar within the last few weeks. I remember a server coming back and like just taking a minute and being like, somebody snapping at me to come to their table. And like, because we're in the service industry, you know, like that doesn't happen in other gigs, right? Like there's not a lot of jobs where you get snapped at.
Man, I don't know what I would. I got snapped at or barked at literally and like yelled at in my younger days. You know, as a mechanic.
As a mechanic, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, this happens. It does. But it's more like, it isn't like, I don't know, it's a different vibe. It's not like, come here and serve me now. It's more like, hurry up, people are waiting on
right,
you.
Right. I got to get to work.
Yeah, like, come on, I got to get this done. It's not like, please me now.
Right.
You know, like,
which is, you know, that happens sometimes, and it's wild. And especially because, you know, not just kitchens, but like even servers and like front of the house restaurant workers, they are also like not your normal people. Like,
sure,
you know, even a server, my partner was a server for a long time, and it's like that a person who has a 9-to-5 office job would be like in tears at the end of like a crazy brunch service as a server, you know, like if you've ever gotten to work at 6 a.m. and then served like 300 people by 3 p.m. and walked like 12 miles back and forth from the kitchen, and your feet are pounding and there's been babies screaming and people snapping at you, you know, like even like being a server takes a type of brain that some people just don't have, you know, and it's like all the oddballs, it's all the weirdos.
Yeah, and and I have to like be fully transparent. In my younger days, I didn't treat the staff at places nearly like I should have. It's just some stupid teenager like, come on, bring me my fries.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm like, man, I should have been just slapped and thrown out of the restaurant. Like, realistically, I think about it now and I'm like, what was wrong with you? Like, why were you guys this way?
It's a weird thing, and like, I don't know. I'm not a super optimistic person, but I'm going to say something kind of optimistic. Like,
okay.
I feel like the general like culture and public perception of those types of things has gotten a lot better. Like I feel like the idea to remember that your server is a human being who's at their job and, you know, probably trying to make ends meet and has, you know, their own problems in their own life that they're dealing with while they're trying to bring you your hamburger. Like, I feel like that thought process is more prevalent now than it was like when you were saying, like when you were a kid, like snap, you know, like being like, give me my damn food.
I don't think I ever snapped at
I don't think you would snap at somebody. But I think like the public awareness of like mental health in general,
right,
and like the way that we talk about, you know, just like basic empathy has gotten better since, you know, like I started in the restaurant industry 15 years ago. I think it's probably a part of that is because of the like celebrity chef boom, you know.
I feel like, I mean, that's a lot of that. It's a lot of it's just culturally more spoken about across the board.
Yeah.
But a lot of that has to happen because of Bourdain, right? We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
Yeah, I think that he was a watershed moment for sure.
Mhm.
I think that, I mean, he wasn't the first person to like open the door.
No, but it seemed like he was the one that the general public was finally like, wait, what?
Yeah, there's something about the way that he did it. I adore Bourdain. I have a signed poster of his that's one of my prized possessions in my
Wow.
house. Like, it would be like my guitars and then like my Tony Bourdain poster.
Dude,
Like,
yes.
I spent a long time worshiping the guy, and there's things I look back now and I'm like, that didn't age super well.
Sure, yeah.
But I think what he did was he took this thing that was so like insular and closed off, and instead of just like showing it and being like, look, this is what people do, like he romanticized it, and he even probably like falsely glorified it a bit,
Sure.
You exaggerate, right? Like that fish is always a couple pounds bigger than the actual fish he caught. Like,
Yeah.
but like he made it cool for a lot of cats. And reading that book, Kitchen Confidential,
Mhm.
like I read that book right in that time where I was like,
Trying to figure out what you're doing.
I'm gonna be the next Pantera versus like I'm gonna be, a professional. Like that's right when somebody lent me that book and I read it and was like, and this is a rock star. Like that's what this dude is talking about. Like
Mhm.
I want to do that thing,
Mhm.
and like not super for the best, like he did glorify a lot of unhealthy habits and like an unhealthy lifestyle.
Oh, yeah.
And I think towards the end of his life, he would be the first person to tell you that,
Mhm.
because like when I look back at that and I think about a 19-year-old me reading this book about this guy who is like hyper obsessed, works himself to the bone, goes out and rages every night, right? Like shuts down the bar. And like, so, like at some point he's like a raging drug addict and has to
on
like
everything.
on everything. Yeah. Uppers, downers, middlers, like whatever,
Yep.
and a constant stream of alcohol and coffee and cigarettes,
Mhm.
like I don't think it's a coincidence that a 19-year-old me read that and then proceeded to become a cook who was obsessed with work and worked too much and became a raging alcoholic and then became a drug addict and then, like
Oh, really? I didn't know that part of your
with a
story.
huge,
Yeah.
buffers of coffee and cigarettes in between all of it.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Whereas like now I'm sober. I don't drink cigarettes anymore. Like I quit caffeine for a while there too. I was like a straight edge. I didn't identify as straight edge, but I was by definition like straight edge for a while.
Mhm.
Now I'm back. I love coffee. It's coffee every day of my life again. But like it's not a coincidence that a young kid like me in that situation
Went down that path.
read about this
Yeah.
like rock star lifestyle, this like crash and burn, like we're gonna work 12-hour shift, then go out and get blackout drunk, and then wake back up and go back to work brunch again on 4 hours of sleep. Like, dude, I did that.
Dude.
I did that a lot, like way more than I should have,
Wow.
So now I think it's the culture is kind of coming back to like kind of recentering
Mhm.
from like glorify it, yeah, Rockstars, unhealthy lifestyle, like this like Tony Bourdain in the 80s thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people did that, and a lot of people like ruined their lives doing that.
100%.
You know,
He almost did.
Yeah, he was lucky. He got out. He there's not a lot of people that. Some people it clicks, and you're like, all right, it's time to grow up, and some people it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those people are 50-year-old line cooks to this day in Portland, Oregon, who are going out and getting hammered every night and like showing up to work the next morning and doing the same thing they've been doing for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the cultural, like I think more than anything now you hear about like sober chefs.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of the sober chefs in Portland that is like out there talking about it and like, not pushing it. Like I don't push my sobriety on people. Like I don't want to be the like preachy guy, but I do think it's like healthy to talk about.
Absolutely.
Especially the fact that like it happens a lot in our industry. Like the percentage of professional cooks that struggle with addiction versus whatever else, somebody who does taxes for a living. Like it's a much higher percentage,
It is. And it's another like similarity between musicians and
absolutely like being a dumbass is really glorified.
Yeah. But what it's also interesting though, and I didn't really pick up on this until honestly about 2018, 2019, when I started getting the opportunity to go backstages and like interview people like that I've looked up to for years. I never ever thought that this would be in the cards for me. I'd ever talk to any of these people.
For sure.
And seeing that's like, oh, it's pretty wild back here. They've got carrot sticks. It's way calmer.
They got hummus. Roasted red pepper hummus?
Yeah. Oh, don't go too far, boys. Yeah. It's really not what it was. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And if you talk to people that were around back then, back then is anywhere between, 2005 back to when rock and roll was invented,
right.
I'm generalizing, but somewhere in that ballpark is when things kind of took a turn. And I think, people still drink, people still do things. And of course there's outliers everywhere, but generally speaking, it's like, no, we're here to work. We got things to do.
We're professionals.
And we got to go get on the road at 6 a.m.
Right.
Like,
right.
No thanks.
And,
like, it's
and
not
a lot
good.
of them is like, I got a wife and kids at home. I gotta call my kid and see how their math test went.
Yeah. And it's there's a lot more responsibility promoted in general. There's things like music cares. We were talking about Emily Wolf earlier. She was talking about that pretty heavily on her episode. And it's just interesting that like both of these industries attract such wild people, and everyone knows about metal and rock stars. Like that's common knowledge, right? But even after Anthony Bourdain, your average person who doesn't pay attention to this stuff still doesn't think of it like that.
For sure.
You don't think of like your chef going back and like, all right, here we go. Like,
time for the crudités.
Yeah, here we go. Rock and roll. Like you don't think of that at all. But but when you know a little bit about it, this is why I wanted to have you on, not this particular topic, though I think it is a very good thing to talk about. It's just the similarities between the two are never ending. Never ever ending. So when you decided to get sober, if you don't want to talk about this, you can tell me.
No, go for it.
Was it just like a particular moment you're like, I can't keep doing this, or was it a combination of things, or was there just like an aha moment, like I got to do something different?
There wasn't like I got really lucky there where I didn't have like one major screw up where like I know people that got sober because they got in their car drunk and totaled their car on the freeway. Like that's what it took for them to get sober. Like I was lucky enough to know that I had a problem, like, and know it ran in my family. Like my grandpa died of a heart attack, like in his 50s or something.
Oh,
he was a boozer. Like it was always kind of in the back of my mind. Like, yeah, I know I drink too much. But, I'll eventually like grow up and grow out of it. And then you don't for like 10 years, a decade goes by.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, it was just a point where I was like, this is making everything in my life so much harder than it has to be. Like, that's really all it came down to. I didn't, like I said, I didn't total my car. I didn't lose my family, none of that stuff. But there just became a point where I was like, I'm sick and tired of being hungover at work. I feel like
I don't even know. I don't even know how you could. I don't know how you could do that job perfectly stone cold sober,
like crystal clear mentality.
With a little coffee and just 8 hours of good sleep. Still couldn't do that job.
No.
So yeah,
I've had the opposite of that. You know, I've showed up and cooked 300 covers for brunch, like still coming down off of hallucinogenics.
Oh no.
You know, you're flipping your eggs and your chef's yelling at you and everything's warbling a bit, you know.
My eggs are talking to me, bro.
They're gonna be up, chef. You know? Like, it sucks. Like, it sucks. Nothing is worse than rolling into work hungover to hell with a huge prep list, knowing you're gonna be super busy and just feeling like you're operating at 50%.
Oh,
like, it's the worst. And, you know, it's the same for like your home life. Like, it sucks to wake up on your day off, your first day off, like your first full day you get to spend with your kid all week, and you just feel like dog crap, you know, and you don't have the energy, and you don't, you know, kid wants to go out and go to the park, and you're like, oh, I let me sleep for 2 more hours, then we'll go out, you know, like, it's just, that's really all it came down to. Like, I don't want to simplify it and be like, yeah, I was tired of having hangovers, so I got sober, but like, but it's the lifestyle, you know, and like wanting to be the best chef that you can be, wanting to be the best parent you can be. Like, dude, I don't care how like cool you are. I don't care. Like, Tony Bourdain, circa 89, being the chef that he was in New York City, there were days where he showed up and crapped the bed. You can't be a great cook, a great chef all the time and live your life like that. Like, you can probably hide it pretty well. You know, like, I was one of those guys who was a really good line cook who could come in and ball on 5 hours of sleep and a bunch of liquor, you know. But you don't always ball. Like,
some days you do not.
Some days you come in and you drop a stinker. I
mean, some days you come in when you're feeling great and things
and you
go
drop
wrong.
a stinker. Absolutely.
So it's going to be even magnified.
And that's exactly why it's like, why not just be like the best version of myself every day?
So it sounds like it's one of those things, and it sounds, not to like oversimplify it, because obviously there's people who make the same calculation and can't stop, but it's like, then the negatives started to outweigh the positives.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, well, if the negatives are going to outweigh the positives, then
it's another thing we say in the kitchen is like, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, man. Right. At a certain point, the juice is worth the squeeze. Past that threshold, juice ain't worth the squeeze anymore.
Yeah, and you know, that applies to lots of things. I think that saying right there, I feel like that came from like a 2000s comedy. I don't remember where I heard that the first time. Anyway, it's like it kind of applies to wherever you are in life, whether you're struggling with substances or even just looking at your job and going like, man, I hate this.
Right.
It's not worth it anymore. And I think people need to be, I mean, obviously you get stuck into things sometimes and there's no real easy way out, but I think people need to be aware that, like, if you just find yourself in that position day in and day out where it's like, this sucks.
Yeah.
The reality is you're going to be spending most of your life working on something. To the best of your ability, try to push that towards something that you don't go, this sucks.
Absolutely.
Because obviously you work really hard, but you wouldn't keep doing it if you didn't like get some fulfillment out of doing those 12-hour shifts and like, doing
absolutely.
All this. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I said, I'm a freak. Like, especially now that I'm sober and I come to work every day and I'm even keeled and my energy level is the same and my sleep schedule.
Does it feel like a superpower in some ways compared to what you used to be?
In retrospect, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's been moments in my sobriety where I'm like, man, if I was hungover today, man, that would have sucked. Things would not be, we would not be where we're at right now, you know? But yeah, you have to love it. And that's, you know, that's something that I find sometimes I have to, like, I don't even want to say check my privilege, but I have to remind myself sometimes how lucky I am and how small of a percentage of the population does what they love for a living.
Oh,
Like, man, like, I'm sure you feel this, like,
all the time.
dude, look where we're at and what we're surrounded by right now.
Mhm.
Like, you're 1%, man. Like, I'm 1% of the population
Mhm.
that 9 times out of 10, like, there's no place I would rather be than, like, in a kitchen. Like, when you came back and said hi to me
Mhm.
and I was octopus arms, you know, like, that's where I want to be. Like, that's my happy place,
Mhm.
you know? And yeah, I'm lucky. And there's a lot of people that unfortunately have to go to work every day and do something that sucks or that they don't like or
Yeah.
that.
And what's interesting too about that is like it's not the same. I would not be stoked to go back and do your job.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's important to like just because it's hard or difficult or insert any negative adjective here, that doesn't mean that's not the thing for you. I think it's people's having enough self-awareness to know what drives them and what doesn't. I will work 80 hours a week for myself so I don't have to work 40 for somebody else.
Absolutely.
For the same or less amount of money. Like that's
Yep.
just me. And my dad's not like that. And he knows that about himself. So that's why he stopped working for himself. He started working for somebody else. Clock in, clock out. Don't have to think about it.
Absolutely.
That makes some people happier. So I think it's not to glorify any one profession or position. And I don't get me wrong. I am eternally thankful that I get to do this. Like everybody that's listening to this or watching this, like that's the whole reason. It's the only reason I get to do this is because people like seem to care what I say sometimes for some reason. I'm
the same way when someone comes in my restaurant and orders chicken wings. I'm like, this is.
I want to talk about those, but anyway,
we'll get to
those.
Like it is, yeah. Like I said, it's appreciation. You know, it's like a lot of people don't get to do like the thing that they love, even if it's just in the field that they love. You know, so you gotta appreciate it sometimes.
I do. Sometimes it always happens out on the porch of the shred shed. Usually about 10 o'clock. I'll just be like, whoa.
yeah.
Like this. Like even if especially sometimes after a hard day. Like hard day. Like, right. I'm like,
your great grandpa worked at a coal mine his whole life.
Well, I mean, I even think of myself. I mean, forget about like those things that I know. Like my grandpa grew up, the grandpa who's alive today and makes those guitar straps that are on these things. He grew up in a house in Eastern Oregon with no running water, no electricity, like snow on the ground, like ranching.
Right.
Like that's when he was a kid, that was his life.
Where at in Eastern Oregon?
Monument.
Okay. I got family in Pendleton.
Okay.
And damn, what's the other one? Hepner.
Yeah, I've been to Hepner a lot.
Family. Yeah,
Yep. It's a similar area.
Yeah,
Hepner is. Yeah. Yeah. That was his life. Like,
right.
and I'm out here going like, oh man, I gotta buy a new set of tubes.
right.
I have to enter an email.
No, there's this buzz on that bass.
This customer's annoying me.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I think about that all the time. And I think that any person who has a healthy relationship with what they do needs to have that thought to like stay sane, you know? Like I just saw a couple days ago, I was watching a Damian Lillard interview where he was saying like, yeah, only a couple of years ago, I would still have that moment where I'd like look at my homie and be like, yo, I'm really in the NBA.
Right.
You know, like that was happening to Damian Lillard a couple of years ago.
Oh, hold on 1 second. You mean Damian Lillard?
Yeah. Sick. I got all the swag.
Yeah.
But you know, like that goes miles for like, I mean, I think if you pay attention to like basketball and you pay attention to all of the dudes who are at the top of that game, like Damian Lillard has to be the most well-adjusted dude out of that group, like down to earth and like realistic and like, you know, whatever, like a Zen dude. Like hearing him say, like, every once in a while, I'm like, yo, I'm really in the NBA.
Right.
It's like, dude, you're a mega star. You are 1% of 1%.
Mm-hmm.
You have a max contract, my guy. You know?
Right.
Like, if you don't do that, though, like, you lose the plot.
Mhm.
You know, whether it's, and like, dude, that's another kind of gross thing that came from, I don't mean to just harp on like celebrity chef culture.
No, go for it. No, I want to hear it.
That's kind of one of those side effects that when the Bourdain pop happened and the celebrity chef thing blew up, like there was a lot of chefs at varying levels of success. Some of them that it was more justified, some of them that it wasn't justified at all, that like got this ego on them and like got this like stank to them, like they were God's gift to food or restaurants or you know, the industry or whatever. Like, and there's a bunch of chefs whose heads got real big, whose egos got real big, and like what the chef is, what a chef is, for a little while kind of flirted with being this ugly, like self-absorbed, like ego-driven thing. And I think that that's another thing that
like a diva rock star.
Absolutely, a diva rock star. Like, you know, the Kanye West is whack. Let me, for the record.
Yeah.
But like
let's just go ahead.
Yeah, let's just say that right now.
We can very comfortably say that. Yeah.
Kanye's a no.
Yeah.
He has a line in one of his songs where he's like, it's hard to be humble when you're stunting on a Jumbotron. Like, success goes to people's heads, and when people and when a culture or when an atmosphere glorifies something, like it's easy for that to go to people's heads and like make something that should be this beautiful thing into this kind of ugly, stinky thing, you know? And I think that that's another really healthy place where that like chef driven food culture is going, is pulling back from that a little bit and like not putting these chefs on this pedestal like they were, because a lot of chefs got put on pedestals and a lot of them crashed and burned, you know? I mean, like there's famously that Michelin star chef that took his own life after losing one of his Michelin stars.
I don't think I heard about that. Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure we're still.
Yeah,
we're good.
I don't know the details. You should Google it and read it though. It's a fascinating and heartbreaking story. I mean, this guy who worked his entire life, this one like sycophantic, psychotic drive to do this thing, and he did it and he achieved it, and he had, you know, like, so 3 Michelin stars is the most. Yeah, it's a 3-star system. 1 Michelin star, you're one of the best restaurants on the planet. 2, smaller. 3 Michelin stars, you're one of, you know, whatever, 100 best restaurants. The top of the top.
Yeah. 0.1%.
And this guy, I couldn't even tell you his name or what restaurant. I used to know it, but he had 3 and he lost his 3rd and went back down to 2. And it's like jumped on a sword, you know?
Jeez.
Not physically, but like metaphorically.
Somehow. Yeah.
And like, I think I think we're getting away from that and being like, hey, maybe we shouldn't glorify these people like they're gods. Maybe we shouldn't support and like advocate for this like psychotic drive towards things. Like maybe let's start talking about work-life balance. Let's maybe start talking about other people in the kitchen that aren't the cook, you know? Like for every amazing chef there's probably a team full of sous chefs under that person who deserve credit. Under those sous chefs, there's an even bigger team of cooks. Behind them, there's a team of dishwashers. Like all of these people contribute to this thing. And I think that's where a lot of the backlash comes from when you talk about, like, I'm sure you probably experienced this in your industry too, where like the things that get glorified and put on like front and center on stage to the outside world, people within that industry start to roll their eyes at it a bit, you know? Like,
oh yeah.
Like the pedal builder that's working wherever, putting together circuits, will like start to roll their eyes at the mega successful, popular pedal maker and like the head of that company who's taking all the praise, you know, or isn't, or is sharing it or whatever. Yeah. Like it kind of breeds this like this thing where like a lot of like the kids like me at the time, when that Bourdain boom happened and you had all these celebrity chefs, like the kid like me who's like working the grill, you know, and like getting paid squat and like barely making ends meet and working for free. Cause you know, like that's something that happened a lot back in the day too.
Really?
Absolutely. When I was learning how to cook, it was like, yeah, come in an hour early and work off the clock for an hour and you can cook. And then when you clock in, you go back to doing the dishes. You know? So like, it's like when you're that kid and you're seeing, you know, celebrity chef X, Y, or Z up there, like getting glorified, like, yeah, there's this natural reaction to roll your eyes at that. And like,
I know how to dice onions too, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if you're a really good cook, you're like, I'm probably better than that guy. Like that guy, you know, and you're wrong. You're wrong all the time. But
yeah. Man, I could honestly talk to you all day long. Well, we're getting close to the end, but I want to get in my classic questions. I know you already know those, but I do want to talk about the chicken wings.
Yeah.
Specifically. So you gave me a list of stuff to try. My wife's not as adventurous as I am. So like I didn't get to, and we wanted to share stuff. So I didn't get to like try the tartare, but I'm going to next time. And a few other things. But for some reason, I feel like those chicken wings were like magical. My wife does not like eating meat off the bone.
Mine either. Yeah, same.
She loved them.
Really?
Yes.
Sick.
Yeah. And I was like, these are, bar none, the best chicken wings I've ever had. I was freaking out. Like, these chicken wings are amazing.
Hell yeah.
I was like, I would come back here and just order 3 plates of these. These are so
Buy
good.
it by the bucket.
Yeah, what is the secret?
So the funny thing about those wings is that it was a play on something more traditional that we were already doing. So Palomar is a Cuban restaurant. It's owned and operated by a Cuban guy who was like first generation American. Parents came here off the boat.
Whoa.
Super Cuban. We all give him crap for it. We're always like, you're the most Cuban thing that's ever happened in the world. Like he's like super handsome, super well dressed. He's a bartender. So he's like,
okay, yeah.
He's been a bartender his whole career. Now he's wearing the business owner hat. But he's this like super slick, well dressed guy.
Oh yeah, he looks great.
When something goes wrong and needs to fix it, he pulls off the nice shirt and he's got like the wife beater and the gold chain, you know, like he's just that dude.
I love it.
So me, you know, obviously not being Cuban, being a Mexican guy, taking the job was like most of our conversations for the first couple of like hour-long meetings that we had was like, what is this food going to be? You know, I didn't want to come in and be like, I'm going to do hardcore, authentic Cuban food because that wouldn't be true to me. That wouldn't be true to Ricky. Oh, there's two. It's confusing.
Yes.
He's Ricky and I'm Ricky.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
You have Cuban Ricky, bartender for the house, Mexican Ricky, chef back in the house.
Got it.
If I just came in and tried to do like, if I tried to nail classic, authentic Cuban stuff, it wouldn't be authentic to us, you know? So we started like, having the conversation like, what is the food at Palomar gonna be now? It can be whatever. He was super open. He was like, I want you to put this together and I want it to be yours.
Did he want it to be Cuban though? Or
he was a pretty open book about it. He's like, it's a Cuban place. It is ran by me. I am Cuban. I'm there every day. The name is Palomar. Like it's going to be Cuban. He's like, but we can go wherever this takes us, basically, which is super rare. You don't have a lot of business owners or restaurant owners who are like willing to.
Well, that means he trusted what you could do.
Yeah, he trusted me. And he was like, I know that you've spent time doing classic French stuff. You know, a lot of my early restaurants when I was like learning how to cook was like old school classic French cuisine. And he was, raised in New Orleans, which obviously has a bunch of French. There's, you know, it's inseparable. So then we were like, all right, well, so this menu should probably look like some Cuban stuff, some Mexican stuff, some Creole Cajun stuff, some old school French stuff, and all of that under this umbrella that's Portland, you know, like Pacific Northwest. And that's one of the things that came out of that was those wings. We'd already had the lechon con mojo on the menu, which is like super traditional. It's pork braised in mojo and like shredded and served with rice. It's amazing.
It's incredible.
It's what I eat almost like 5 nights a week. I eat lechon con mojo.
It's so good. We got that too.
But I came to him and I was like, yo, feel free to shoot this down if you want. But what if we took that mojo sauce and cooked chicken wings in it and then deep fried them? And like, I thought he was going to be like, that's not really a thing. Like, I don't know. But he was like, oh, my mom actually does that at home in her air fryer.
Oh.
So I was like, boom.
Let's do it.
If there's a Cuban mom back in New Orleans doing this in her air fryer at home, it's probably going to be dank.
Yep.
So then, yeah, we threw it together and was like, yeah, this is as good as it sounds.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. I'm thinking about it right now. I haven't had breakfast or lunch.
I haven't either.
Well, we're going to fix that.
I've had a yerba mate today.
I had some water and some multivitamins.
We suck at being people. We played guitar for 2 hours on empty stomachs instead of like eating a muffin.
That's fine. We'll fix that up here shortly. All right. Yeah. But all right, I do want to get into the classic questions, and you being a chef, I'm of course most interested in your answer to the final one. But before I do that, like I like to give the guests the floor. Like, tell people where they can find you. Shout out your grandma. Say anything you want to say right now. You got a couple thousand people you're talking to. So
hell yeah. Come see me at Palomar. We're in inner Southeast Portland.
Go.
Bomb food, bomb cocktails. So like we're a restaurant now. Like Ricky's like, yeah, we're a restaurant now. I'm ready to say that. But it started off as a bar. Like you wanted to be a cocktail bar. So like cocktails are out of control. They're dummy.
I don't even get mixed drinks very often. Insane.
They're insane. I don't, as an old sober guy, I very rarely will like taste something and spit it. I'll taste the cocktails and spit it there.
Oh yeah,
I need to see what this tastes like.
They're so good.
But yeah, come see me. We got from 5 to 10, 5 days a week. It's like fine dining, fancy. If you want to take wifey out on a date, it's like that kind of vibe. Get dressed up, treat yourself.
Yeah,
Palomar.
Go there. It is. I will put my stamp of approval firmly on it.
Hell yeah, thank you.
I was admittedly at very high expectations.
And
when I don't even like going to this is not really true, but when I have high expectations, sometimes I'm like, man, there's no way it's gonna meet them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get hyped for a movie.
I do that when I go see movies.
Yeah.
I almost get stressed out that the movie's not gonna be as good.
And sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
No, this is better.
Hell
I had high expectations and it was better. So yeah, one of the best meals I've ever had.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. That was a really tasty week for me, actually. We had Eam like
a
couple days before.
Yes.
And we just happened to be up there for an appointment. And it was like, it's lunchtime. Let's go.
Hell yeah.
So we had Eam, and then like 2 days later we had Palomar. It was like, this is a tasty week.
Yep.
So yeah, everybody check that out. All right. First of the classic questions. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh man, would I be a huge nerd if I said that that they're noise suppressor?
No. No.
Dude, so I like coming up playing guitar, I was always kind of like taught by like the older kids or whatever that like noise suppressors were for chumps.
What?
Yeah, that like you should be able to just like play like tighter and like mute your strings better and like
that only goes so far.
No, I mean, granted, this is like high school kids 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was like you should be able to play those Lamb of God riffs and like hit the silences and not hear anything.
That's because he has a noise suppressor.
Yeah, they all have noise suppressors. So like with all my pedal board and like all the pedals that I love and adore so much, like can't go without can't go without it.
Do you do the side chain thing with it, or do you just run straight in?
No, I just run it after my dirt and before my chorus and reverb.
I want to try I personally have never done the side chain trick, but it seems so cool. I've got to try it.
What is the trick? What is this now?
It's got another like trigger input into it. And I
Okay.
can't remember exactly the routing. It's been explained to me like 5 times. My brain
It won't let it in.
It won't let it in. But so I have to Google it every time. But there's a way you can set it up to where it's using like a different input to trigger the suppressor
Okay.
instead of just whatever's coming in the front of it.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember exactly how it works. So there's somebody out there right now like, it works. I'm telling you how it works. Why do you have a podcast? Like,
Yeah. Okay.
you guys just talk about food the whole time.
Send me the link when you Google it, because
Yeah.
now I want to try it too.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right. Now this is going to be a big one. There's no way we're going to get through this like fully in the last few minutes here. But what is your favorite kind of pizza?
So, I mean, the troll in me wants to say Totino's Supreme Pizza covered in hot sauce.
I'm more of a combination guy when it comes to Tino's.
Wait, which one has the little fennel seed sausages?
That's combo.
Combo. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
combo.
Yeah.
As a broke boy,
Mhm.
as somebody who grew up below the poverty line, there's still nothing that hits like a Totino's pizza doused in Cholula. That is my jam.
So I'm going to give you a secret right now that I've talked about before, but a lot of people aren't fully aware. So Totino's. Take Totino's, you put on Traeger. And since you're local here, this will work for you. You go to Sheridan Fruit Company.
Uh-huh.
You get what's called their Supreme Dream sausage, which is their pizza sausage.
Yeah.
You open that bad boy up. Sometimes they have it in bulk, not usually. It's usually like if something went wrong. They have it on bulk.
Yeah, throw it in the bowl.
Yeah, but that you open that thing up and you sprinkle it all over the top.
You double up on the sausage.
And you put it on the Traeger and you smoke it.
That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
That sounds ridiculous.
It's so ridiculously
That's
good.
so good.
The sausage costs like 3 times more than the actual pizza.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The pizza's like $2. Dude, Sheridan sausage bangs. Their
It's
sausages
so
are so good.
It is. I used to drive by there every day on my home from work, and like 3 days a week, I'd be like, sausage, maple elk every time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when I was at the Chef at Bit House Saloon for a while, which is, it's not there anymore, but it's like a block from
Mhm.
Sheridan. And I put this chorizo egg McMuffin on the brunch menu.
Mm.
It's back on the Palomar brunch coming soon.
Oh, Palomar brunch.
April. Palomar brunch.
Now we're talking.
So we got like a chorizo egg McMuffin Frida Cubana. It's insane. It's wild.
Man, that
So
sounds so
we
good.
get fresh English muffins from Dos Hermanos Bakery.
Mhm.
And then we just smash chorizo and sear it like a patty, fried egg, potato sticks.
Yes.
It's incredible.
I can't wait.
But I was making my own chorizo in house at Bit House. And then we like ran out like on the fly one day and I just went and got the stuff they make at Sheridan.
Rojo?
I was like, this is better than mine. I'm serving this
Their
from now
chorizo
on.
Rojo is
Oh,
phenomenal.
it's so good. It's like, I'm not going to make this anymore. We're buying this from Sheridan.
Yeah. So I so badly wish this place was still in business. There used to be a place here in Oregon City called Lancheria Mitzel. And it was like old lady from Oaxaca.
Oaxaca. Yeah.
And she was incredible. Her name was Luce. I think she's still around. I haven't seen her in several years, but the restaurant's unfortunately closed. Her chorizo.
Yeah.
I can't stop
That's
thinking
the
about
one.
It's the Sheridan's is the closest I've found.
Yeah.
And it's still not quite there.
Chorizo is one of those
Mhm.
things where it's like, it's when you get it's magical.
She made queso fundido
Yes.
and she put the chorizo in it, and it's just
So
oh,
next time you're in town, hit up Loncheria Los Mayas.
okay.
That's in Northeast.
Mhm.
It's my favorite tacos in Portland.
Okay.
And that is, I don't say that with a light hand. They're my favorite tacos in Portland.
Have you been to Romero's?
I haven't yet.
So those are my favorite tacos. in
I've
Portland.
heard good things.
They're-
Their
Their al pastor is really good.
we did one Cinco de Mayo a while back. Me and all my Mexican chef homies did a pop-up. It was one of those things where it was like we're so sick of this like Americanized, like capitalist, like Cinco de Drinko
right.
thing, you know? We're like, screw it. Instead of just sitting back and being like, it pisses me off. Like, let's do our own Cinco de Mayo pop-up
Yeah.
and actually like do dope stuff. But we actually got the trompo and did al pastor on the spit with the
Mhm.
pineapple.
Mhm.
from a whole
It's the only place I accept pineapple, by the way.
Oh,
So,
same.
It's it.
Just straight up pineapple.
Yeah.
I will eat straight up pineapple until I'm sick.
Not me. I can't do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, little sprinkle of tahini.
No.
That's the way. But no, I'm the same way. Like pizza, nasty. I don't want it anywhere except for
Pro chef, everybody. You heard it here.
It's disgusting. Don't put fruit on pizza.
At least
I would rather have apples.
I would too.
Have you had like an apple, like goat cheese, like a fancy pizza?
Yeah.
Way better than pineapple.
Way better.
Way better.
Way
like
better.
Bacon, goat cheese, apple on a pizza.
Now you're talking.
Dank.
We got to get to lunch.
Yeah, let's go get some food.
But we're going to do Patreon first. Or maybe when we come back. Whatever.
You're the boss.
Dude, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Hell yeah, bro.
Loved it. I could talk to this guy all day, and I'm going to talk to him more. Some of it's going to be off camera, though. So if you want to hear more of the conversation, come over to Patreon. But for now, for Ricky, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. And this is one of those occasions, I'm not going to lie, Patreon's even better. So if you would like to support the show and get bonus content beamed to your ears every week, you can go to patreon.com/tonemob, where for $5 a month, you'll not only get the ad-free feed, you will also get the bonus episodes. And we go for a very long time on this one. I think this is another hour plus bonus episode. So check that out. If you want to support the show, I would really, really appreciate that. If you just want the ad-free feed, that is only $3. You won't get the bonus episodes, but you will not be pestered by ads throughout the episode anymore. If you find yourself in Portland, I implore you to go check out Palomar. Please get yourself a meal there. You will not regret it. It is incredible food. It's an incredible atmosphere, and I absolutely enjoyed my time there so much. I definitely plan on going back as soon as humanly possible. And go give Chef Ricky a follow on Instagram. The link to that is, of course, in the show notes. All right, folks, thank you so much for everything. I will talk to you on the internet very, very soon. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hi, this is Paul Phelps.
And this is Monica Strutt.
And we're from the Daily Music Business Podcast. We're joined by a number of other really great hosts in creating daily content with great advice for independent musicians just like you.
That's right. We put out episodes daily on all topics from music marketing to branding, advice on signing with a manager and label, and anything else you need to up-level the business side of your music career. We've got it covered.
Subscribe to the Daily Music Business Podcast today on your favorite podcast catcher.
Subscribe today to the Daily Music Business Podcast on your favorite podcast platform.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass the Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come baby come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come baby, come, baby, baby, come, come.